A $75 a week contract player named Leonard Slye walked onto a Republic Pictures set in 1938 and filmed a low-budget Western in just 9 days. By the time that picture hit theaters, he had a new name, Roy Rogers, and within 5 years he would claim the title of King of the Cowboys and hold the top spot at the Western box office for 10 consecutive years. The film was called Under Western Stars, and what makes it one of the most unusual debut pictures in Hollywood history has nothing to do with its modest budget. The circumstances that created it, the content hidden inside it, and the unlikely chain of events that made it possible tell a story that even devoted Western fans rarely hear. 15 hidden facts about this film deserve attention, from the contract dispute that handed Roy Rogers his opportunity to the Oscar-nominated song that triggered a lawsuit, to the famous horse that had just finished carrying Olivia de Havilland across Sherwood Forest. This is a piece of Hollywood history worth knowing. 1. Gene Autry's walkout created Roy Rogers. Under Western Stars was never supposed to star Roy Rogers, and the script was written entirely for Gene Autry. December 1937 brought a crisis to Republic Pictures when Gene Autry, the reigning king of the singing cowboys, walked off the job. Autry had been earning $5,000 per picture, and he wanted $15,000, which amounted to a 200% raise. Money wasn't his only grievance, either. Studio head Herbert Yates had started demanding a cut of Autry's merchandise deals, endorsement income, and personal appearance fees, and Autry refused to hand any of it over. Republic responded with force rather than negotiation. Judge R.B.C. Howell of Nashville granted the studio an injunction that barred Autry from appearing in any films, live shows, or radio programs for the duration of his contract. Herbert Yates decided that if Autry wouldn't work, he would simply create an entirely new star to replace him. The film had already been in development under the working titles Western Cowboy and Washington Cowboy. And once Autry dug in his heels, Republic started auditioning replacements. 2. The Hat Shop Audition Story. Hollywood legend says Leonard Slye stumbled into his big break while shopping for a hat. The story goes that Slye was browsing in a hat shop when another man rushed through the door, announcing he needed a 10-gallon hat for a studio audition at Republic Pictures. Slye dropped whatever he was doing and raced straight to the studio, where he managed to talk his way into a meeting with producer Sol C. Siegel. Details of this story vary between accounts, which gives it the feel of Hollywood mythology, but the documented facts pick up from there. Slye signed his Republic contract on the 13th of October 1937, locking in a salary of just $75 per week. Republic executives invented his new stage name on the spot. They picked Roy because it sounded good with a hard consonant, and they chose Rogers as a tribute to the beloved humorist Will Rogers, who had recently died. Leonard Slye wouldn't make the name legal until 1942, but as far as Republic Pictures cared, their new cowboy star already existed. 3. Rogers wasn't actually a newcomer. By the time Roy Rogers stepped into his starring role, he had already spent years clawing his way through Hollywood's musical Western scene. Leonard Franklin Slye came into the world on the 5th of November, 1911, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His family relocated to California during the Depression in 1930, and the young Slye took whatever work he could find, driving trucks and picking fruit as a migrant laborer. Those fruit camps where he earned his wages were the same ones John Steinbeck would later immortalize in The Grapes of Wrath. Between 1933 and 1934, Slye teamed up with Bob Nolan and Tim Spencer to form a musical group, and a radio announcer named Harry Hall gave them their name. Hall declared they were too young to be pioneers, but could be sons of pioneers, and the sons of the pioneers were born. The 8th of August 1934 marked their first commercial recording session for Decca, which included Tumbling Tumbleweeds, a song that became a Western music standard. Slye appeared in roughly 10 films between 1935 and 1937, sometimes under his birth name and sometimes credited as Len Slye. He even tried out the stage name Dick Weston for 2 Republic Pictures before his break finally came. 4. Rogers once played a villain, opposite Gene Autry. One of the strangest ironies in Western film history happened 2 years before Under Western Stars. A 1936 Gene Autry picture called The Old Corral featured Leonard Slye in a supporting role, but he wasn't playing a hero. Slye showed up as an unshaven bandit named Buck O'Keefe, and Autry's character threatens to arrest him. The scene has Autry forcing the outlaw to yodel his way out of trouble. That film remains the only picture in which Gene Autry and Roy Rogers appear together on screen. The man who would eventually dethrone Autry as Hollywood's top singing cowboy once played a criminal begging for mercy in Autry's movie, and you couldn't invent a better piece of foreshadowing if you tried. 5. The 9-day shooting schedule. Republic Pictures built its reputation on speed and efficiency, but Under Western Stars pushed even their limits. Principal photography wrapped in approximately 9 days. A Hollywood Reporter item dated the 24th of February 1938 confirms the studio had purchased the songs but hadn't started filming yet. Republic released the finished picture on the 20th of April 1938, which means the entire process, from production start to theatrical release, happened in less than 2 months. Director Joseph Kane, Republic's top Western hand who had guided Gene Autry's earlier films, ran the shoot. Location work happened at Alabama Hills near Lone Pine, California, a stretch of terrain that Hollywood used constantly for Westerns. Additional footage captured the drought sequences at Tinnemaha Reservoir near Death Valley, and the crew shot town scenes at the Winneduma Hotel in Independence, California. 9 days, a shoestring budget, and the production values still held up surprisingly well. 6. Smiley Burnett made the transition seamless. One of Republic's smartest moves involved keeping Gene Autry's sidekick on the payroll and pairing him directly with the new leading man. Smiley Burnett had racked up somewhere between 62 and 64 film appearances alongside Gene Autry, always playing some version of his comic character Frog Milhouse. When Autry abandoned the studio, Republic simply handed Burnett to Rogers, which gave audiences a familiar face sitting right next to the unknown star. That bit of casting continuity proved brilliant. Fans who loved Burnett's comedic timing in Autry's pictures could warm up to Rogers faster because his trusted sidekick rode alongside him. 9 films paired Burnett and Rogers before Autry eventually patched things up with the studio and returned. Their partnership smoothed what could have been a rocky transition from obscure contract player to leading man. 7. The film was political, in ways Westerns never were. Under Western Stars broke the mold for what a B-Western could be about. Most Westerns released in 1938 stuck to familiar territory. Rustlers, outlaws, stagecoach heists, and frontier justice, all set in the Old West of the 1800s. This film threw all of that out. The setting was contemporary 1938, and the story tackled corporate monopoly, government corruption, and environmental catastrophe head-on. Roy Rogers plays a ranger from a small western town called Sageville who decides to run for Congress because his neighbors are dying of thirst. The villain isn't a gunslinger or a gang leader. The villain is a corporation called the Great Western Water and Power Company, which has built a dam and started hoarding water while charging rates that farmers and ranchers can't afford. Once Rogers wins his congressional seat, the story follows him to Washington, where he has to navigate corruption backed by corporate money. The climax comes when Rogers has to stop desperate ranchers from dynamiting the dam themselves. A B-Western from 1938, where the hero becomes a congressman and takes on a monopolistic corporation that was unheard of. The Dust Bowl wasn't hiding in the background of this picture. The Dust Bowl was the whole point. 8. The Mr. Smith Goes to Washington connection. Film historians have noticed that Under Western Stars and Frank Capra's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington share an unusual number of story elements, and the timing raises questions. Both films center on a political newcomer, the son of a politician, who wins election to Congress and immediately takes on corruption tied to a land and water bill. Both films pit an idealistic outsider against Washington insiders bankrolled by corporate interests. Capra's picture came out in 1939, just 1 year after Republic released Under Western Stars. Some historians have speculated that Capra may have seen Republic's Little B Western before he made his own film. Causation can't be proven from timing alone, but the parallels are hard to ignore, and they suggest that a movie shot in 9 days for almost nothing might have planted a seed for one of the most celebrated political films in American cinema. 9. Critics recognized a star immediately. Trade publications in April 1938 took one look at Roy Rogers and predicted exactly what would happen next. Variety declared that Rogers lives up to every expectation, and then some, and went further, predicting that the end of year will find Rogers firmly embedded in draw firmament. Film Daily kept it simple, writing that Rogers should prove a hit. Box Office magazine described him as a new crooning son of the saddle, destined to travel far and fast toward the top among the action favorites. Luella Parsons weighed in by November 1938, comparing Rogers to Gary Cooper in personal appeal, and critics started calling him the new playboy of the Western world. The industry spotted a star, and the industry was right. 5 years later, Roy Rogers claimed the top Western box office spot, a position he would hold for 10 consecutive years, from 1943 through 1952. 10. The Oscar-nominated song, Dust, had a complicated history. Dust became the first song from a B-Western to earn an Academy Award nomination, and the path to that nomination ran through a courtroom. Two songwriters created Dust, and their names were Johnny Marvin and Gene Autry. A Hollywood Reporter item from the 24th of February 1938 confirms Republic purchased the song from composers Gene Autry and Johnny Marvin. That's both names, right there in the trade papers. What appeared on screen told a different story. Because Autry was locked in his contract dispute with the studio, Republic stripped his name from the credits entirely and listed only Johnny Marvin as the songwriter. April 1938 brought a lawsuit. Autry sued Republic for $25,000, claiming unauthorized use and dramatization of the lyrics. The case settled out of court before Autry returned to Republic in May 1938, and the official Academy records still list Johnny Marvin alone as the credited songwriter for Dust. 11. The Oscar competition was fierce. That nomination for Dust gave Republic Pictures something the studio had never achieved before, their first Academy Award nomination for Best Song. The ceremony took place on the 23rd of February 1939 at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles, and the competition that night included some of the best songwriters working in Hollywood. Irving Berlin had a nomination for Change Partners. Harry Warren and Johnny Mercer submitted Jeepers Creepers. Oscar Hammerstein, too, offered A Mist Over the Moon. 10 nominees total, and Dust stood among them. The winner that night was Thanks for the Memory, from the big broadcast of 1938, the tune that became Bob Hope's signature for the rest of his career. Dust went home empty-handed, but the fact that a song from a 9-day B-Western had earned a seat at that table alongside Hollywood's elite songwriters was an achievement in itself. The performance in the film carries real weight. Rogers sings Dust during a Washington party he organizes as a congressman, performing directly to his fellow legislators, while newsreel footage of drought devastation plays behind him. The lyrics plead for relief from the Dust Bowl. "Oh Lord, please ease my pain. Oh Lord, where is your rain and sunshine?" Entertainment and genuine American suffering met in that scene. 12. Trigger had just worked with Olivia de Havilland. The golden palomino who appeared in Under Western Stars hadn't earned the name Trigger yet, and his previous job was far more glamorous than a B-Western. Just weeks before filming started on Rogers' debut, that same horse had appeared in The Adventures of Robin Hood, the 1938 Errol Flynn classic. The palomino played Maid Marian's horse, carrying Olivia de Havilland through Sherwood Forest. Before that, the horse called Golden Cloud had been foaled on a ranch, partly owned by Bing Crosby. Smiley Burnett gets credit for suggesting the new name. He reportedly said the horse was quick on the trigger, and the name stuck. Rogers purchased the animal for $2,500 in 1943 and spent years teaching him 150 trick cues. Trigger learned to walk 50 feet on his hind legs, and Republic eventually started billing him as the smartest horse in the movies. That horse went from Errol Flynn's Sherwood Forest to Roy Rogers' Dusty Range in a matter of weeks. 13. The supporting cast had surprising connections. Several actors in Under-Western Stars carried interesting histories that linked them to other corners of Hollywood. Carol Hughes played Eleanor Fairbanks, the female lead opposite Rogers. That same year, 1938, she also appeared alongside Gene Autry in Goldmine in the Sky, which means she worked with both of Republic's singing cowboys within months of each other. Hughes would go on to inherit the role of Dale Arden in Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe in 1940. Her personal life had its own Hollywood connections. She stayed married to actor Frank Phelan for 57 years, and their daughter Catherine eventually married Regis Philbin. Dick Elliott played William P. Scully, the corrupt incumbent congressman that Rogers defeats in the election. Audiences years later would recognize Elliott as the mayor on The Andy Griffith Show. Frankie Marvin took the role of Deputy Pete, and his presence created another link in the chain. Frankie Marvin was the brother of Johnny Marvin, the songwriter credited with Dust. The B-Western community operated like a small town where everyone knew everyone, and these casting choices prove how interconnected that world really was. 14. The film was added to the National Film Registry. The Library of Congress selected Under-Western Stars for the National Film Registry in 2009, recognizing it as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. The library's essay on the film describes Roy Rogers as the almost perfect embodiment of what a cowboy should be in appearance, values, good manners, and chivalrous behavior. That official recognition came after decades of the film suffering from terrible print quality. Republic mishandled the original materials when preparing them for television distribution, and degraded copies spread everywhere. Some versions ran only 54 minutes, chopped down from the original 65. The film fell into public domain, and low-quality releases multiplied. A proper restoration finally happened in 2021, when Verdugo Entertainment tracked down director Joseph Kane's personal 16mm print, believed to be the only complete and uncut 16mm copy still in existence. The restored version premiered at the Lone Pine Film Festival on the 9th of October, 2021, and Roy Rogers' daughter, Cheryl Rogers Barnett, attended the screening. July 2024 brought a Blu-ray release from Film Masters, a newly restored archive collection, complete with commentary track. Today the film streams for free with ads on Tubi, Pluto TV, the Roku channel, Hoopla, and Plex. Subscription services including Amazon Prime Video, MGM Plus, and several others also carry it. The Library of Congress makes it available as part of the National Film Registry collection. 15. The film launched one of Hollywood's greatest careers. 9 days of filming and a shoestring budget produced one of the most successful career launches in Western movie history. 87 films for Republic Pictures followed between 1,938 and 1,951. Rogers topped the Western box office for 10 consecutive years, from 1,943 through 1,952. During 1945 and 1946, he ranked among the top 10 money-making stars across all films, not just Westerns, joining a club that included only 2 other Western performers, Gene Autry and John Wayne. Republic made the King of the Cowboys title official in 1942, and The Roy Rogers Show ran on television from 1951 to 1957. The ultimate twist in this story is that Roy Rogers eventually surpassed the very star whose contract dispute had opened the door for him. When Gene Autry enlisted in the Army Air Corps in 1942, Rogers stepped into the vacancy and never looked back. The man who created the opportunity became the man left behind. 15 hidden facts about Under-Western Stars reveal a film that was anything but ordinary.